Thank you for joining us once again for another episode of Puddin's Training Tips, narrated by her mom. Today's topic is managing behaviors. Miller talks a little bit about this in the book titled The Power of Positive Dog Training. The point behind managing behaviors is if your dog is not yet trained in a specific behavior, but you still don't want a certain behavior to occur, you have to find ways to manage that behavior. And as most positive training books will tell you, that trying to do anything after the fact is extremely counterproductive. Number one, the dog will not know what you're disciplining him or her for. It could hurt your relationship with your pet. It could make your pet defensive or frightened, or the dog might misunderstand what he or she is being disciplined for. For instance, if you come home and found that the dog has gotten into the trash and you yell at the dog 6, 7, 8 hours after the fact, the dog isn't going to know that you're yelling about the trash. The dog might think that you're yelling at him for approaching you when you come home. So now the dog has learned to never approach you. So if you're out and about, you need the dog to come. The dog might remember being yelled at for approaching and not come to you, and sometimes that could be an emergency. So what are some more positive ways that you could manage behavior? Well, getting into the garbage is only natural for a dog. They're natural scavengers, they're natural hunters. If they find food, they are going to want to eat it. So there's no reason to get mad at them for getting into the garbage. Instead, to make sure they don't get into it, there's a couple of things you could do. Number one, you could crate the dog, and you want to make sure you acclimate them to a crate before you leave them in one all day, or just put the garbage up out of the way. I keep my garbage on top of my kitchen island. Some people keep their garbage cans under the sink with the cabinet door closed, or you could keep your garbage in a separate room and make sure that door is closed. If you know that your dog has not yet learned to not jump on people, and you know you have a neighbor coming over with a young child and your dog is 80 pounds, then you don't wait until your dog jumps up and snatch them away. The message you could be sending there, if you snatch your dog really hard when they're jumping on a kid, just out of a friendly purpose, and the dog feels that tightness on the leash, or it feels it being snatched or disciplined, the dog might learn to associate pain with children, and the dog could learn from you that children are bad and could learn to hate children. So once again, it's not something that you ever want to do after the fact. So if you know your dog might jump and you haven't yet taught him not to, then you could, number one, meet your neighbor someplace else. You could put your dog away in another room, or you could leash your dog before your neighbor comes over and hold your dog on a leash the entire time the neighbor is there. Then of course, you want to continue working on positive methods to teach not jumping. Like for instance, just turning your back on the dog or ignoring the dog when he jumps. If you know your dog might chew your shoes when you're out, don't get mad when you get home. In order to save your shoes, and in order to teach the dog not to have the habit of chewing on shoes, and just keep shoes out of her way, make sure you put your shoes up high where she can't reach them, or you lock your shoes in the closet, close the door so she can't get to them, so she won't develop that habit of chewing. Another more dangerous issue are dogs that bolt out of doors or out of gates. And of course, you'll want to teach your dog the wait command or the stay command or the recall to come back to you. But let's just say that you know your dog isn't quite well versed in the wait or the recall yet, but you still don't want them running out of doors. There are several things you could do. Make sure they're in another room whenever you open a door. You could put a barrier up in front of your door. Like you could stretch a baby gate across your door. Or what I did here in this example in this picture is I opened up a playpen lengthwise and put it across the door. And you want to do the same thing with your backyard. Make sure your dog is nowhere near the gate when you open your gate until you know you've taught a good solid wait. And even if your dog is really good at wait, it's still a good idea to have an extra barrier or to be extra cautious when you're going out the door. Because even though they might know wait, a rabbit or a cat running down the street might be more interesting than your command. And these are just some of the few small examples of how to manage behaviors until you get your dog well trained in a positive manner. In the next video, I'm going to talk about some specific things you could do to manage behaviors. What we just saw here were some general things. For more articles on dog training and pet care education, be sure to log on to www.stubbypuddin.com. If you're in the San Antonio area, you can also check information. Puddin is available for public appearances. Thank you.